Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk with you about quiet borderline. What is it? Does it even really exist? So like I said, today we're going to talk about quiet borderline personality disorder. Now I have other videos on borderline personality disorder as a whole, the diagnostic criteria, DBT techniques, all sorts of great stuff. So you can click over here and the cards will come down and you can kind of pick videos, and I would encourage you, if you have not watched my borderline personality disorder video, please watch it first, please, because it will explain what borderline personality disorder is criteria-wise, because now I'm going to build on that video and talk about how some of us may experience this differently. Okay? So, a regular borderline person, and I'm saying regular because a majority of people experience borderline and the way that we diagnose it in a very outward expressing way. They can be really volatile in relationships. They can be really aggressive and get really angry. They can attempt suicide multiple times. They are constantly fighting with this worry and stress about potential or any perceived abandonment. And it can be a really scary place to live. Struggling with borderline can be really hard, and people really worry that people are going to leave them, and they feel really alone and they feel empty. And many of them lash out, like I said. However, many of us don't. And some people wonder, do those people really have borderline personality disorder or a quiet borderline? And the answer is that, of course, everyone experiences things differently. And when you read through the DSM, when you're talking about different criteria within any diagnoses, they always say some people may present differently. However, this is, the majority of people with this express it this way. So like I said, many people will express it differently. And a quiet borderline, I want to read you from, obviously, my handy-dandy DSM, a little bit about how it can be felt differently. And this passage says, it's talking about how people can change from being like in the needy kind of clingy role in a relationship to the avenger, like that they're angry that that person, has hurt them or hasn't been there for them. And it says, although they usually have a self-image that is based on being bad or evil, individuals with this disorder may at times have feelings that they do not exist at all. Such experiences usually occur in situations in which the individual feels a lack of meaningful relationship, nurturing, and support. Now I wanted to bring out that passage because to me that screams that quiet borderline feeling, like they don't really exist, that people aren't nurturing them the way that they need. They need more support. None of those things are an outward expressing thing. These are things that we feel internally that can be really uncomfortable and really hurtful. And there's another thing that they talk about, how you can have impulsivity in at least two areas of your life, many of which aren't necessarily things people would know. This could be binge eating. This could be abusing substances. These aren't always things that people are going to know we're doing. These are things we can do on our own and have our own kind of self-deprecating situations, things that we're doing to potentially sabotage our life. And these are all internal. That's why I keep making this gesture, because these are things that we do on our own and not necessarily things that we express to other people or lash out. Am I right? Are you following? And a lot of this involves self-harm. They talk about people who self-mutilate. That's how they describe it in the DSM. And that's something we all know that we do in secret. So there, again, we're not lashing out. Nobody knows it's happening. This is like our internal kind of hatred and sadness and loneliness that we're feeling. And they also say that we may have intense dysphoria. And a lot of us can feel really down a lot and really depressed, and we can be isolatory. We can stay at home. I have many clients in my practice off and on who I feel fit a quiet borderline criteria. Now, there is no different diagnoses. I would still have to diagnose them as borderline personality disorder, but everyone experiences it differently. And another thing is that we oftentimes they say that people with borderline, when they express a lot of anger and they get really aggressive, and for quiet borderlines, this could not even be perceived by the other person as that aggressive. But to us, it feels aggressive. And immediately following that, we have a lot of shame and guilt and anger in. Now, we've talked about, I think in the past, about how anxiety and depression can be kind of like anger in things, and other things in our life can be anger out. So quiet borderline can be more anger in, whereas maybe the more traditional borderline would be anger out. Does that make sense? I think the most important thing to remember with all of this, as I talk about how this can be expressed differently person to person, is that no matter what diagnoses I'm talking about, you may experience it differently than the DSM says you're supposed to. Because as we know, diagnostic criteria has to be black and white. And we know life is very gray, and we all live in the gray. But I think the best thing that we can do for ourselves, to be an advocate for ourselves, is that when we talk to our therapist, our psychologist, our psychiatrist, whoever we're seeing to get support, that we ask them questions about our diagnoses. You can even say, I don't feel like I lash out like you're talking about or what I've read about this diagnosis, or I feel like I experience that a little differently. It's important to have those conversations because this is your life, it's your diagnoses, and the sooner we can take control of it and the sooner we can understand it and feel like we're getting the support we need and we know what we need to do to improve ourselves, the better. So feel free to ask questions of your clinicians. It's important that we're all on the same page and that you understand what you're going through and feel that they understand it as well. Now, the thing that I want to leave you with, because I know borderline people in general, and a lot of you have spoken up to me and said, like, it gets a bad rep and people tell me I'll never get better and they don't know how to treat me, and I'm passed around from different therapist to therapist and they say it's just a lifelong thing. I want to read you this. I want you to listen. It says, follow-up studies of individuals identified through outpatient mental health clinics, which would just be like you seeing me or anything else, indicate that after about 10 years, as many as half of the individuals no longer have a pattern of behavior that meets full criteria for borderline personality disorder. So if anybody tells you you can't get better, borderline is forever and it's shitty and it's bad and you feel like no one's taking you seriously and you cannot recover, you can. It's a bunch of bullshit. People don't fully understand borderline personality disorder, and I think they often fear it. They don't seek to understand. But we know, statistically speaking, the DSM states that it can get better, that half of the people that they just followed who were getting some kind of treatment didn't have it anymore. So know, if you're feeling stressed, you're feeling maxed out, and you feel like you've been working at it forever, there is hope. If you keep working on it, if you're doing your DBT skills, you're working with your therapist, it will get better. You can overcome it. This is not a lifelong struggle. Trust me. And we will keep working together, taking one step at a time towards a healthy mind and a healthy body. That's me. Oh, but remember, we have to have 5 of these. And you may feel like a lot of these pertain to you, and I can really connect with that. And that's why you may have heard, you have borderline tendencies or borderline-like symptoms, right? Because we don't meet all